The Rough Drafts podcast is sponsored by Unicorn.com, the world's premier esport betting site. Log on today to bet on all your favorite esports titles at the simple click of a button. Choose your game, choose your team, earn unicoins, and who knows, maybe you'll earn enough to enter to win any number of fabulous prizes, such as Logitech peripherals or CSGO skins in their marketplace. Unicorn.com. Log on today.
For those of you on Twitch, we're just going to keep on keeping on. If you know, Group C is here. It's a group that I think is an even more interesting group in my mind as far as the 2-1, 1-2 groups than Group B, because I don't think anyone expected Edward Gaming to fall off as quickly as they did. Day one, it took one day to get to the point where suddenly EDG lost a game to a wild card region. Should we be worried about this?
Oh, absolutely not. No worry, none, because they took care of business the other 2 days. They looked great the other 2 games. I think this was classic Chinese sandbagging. They didn't respect their opponents, and Revolta and Yang just played out of their absolute minds and had about as perfect a game that you could ever want from a wild card team against a top 3 team in the world. And then guess what? They crushed AHQ and they crushed H2K.
Yeah, I mean,
they crushed them. Like, they crushed those 2 teams. It wasn't that close. So no, I'm not worried about them. They're still a top 4 team in the world for me.
I mean, certainly they're a top 4 team in the world. We had them top 2 when we did our preseason, when we did our pre-Worlds preview, I should say. Do you think that there are? I mean, because the flaw that jumps out to me is that Clearlove still does not gank for the top lane.
Yep.
I think that killed them against INTZ. I think it severely handicapped them against AHQ. I think that had AHQ not been so thoroughly dominated in the bot lane, it would have been a different game. And even then, it was closer than EDG probably wanted it to be. Certainly, H2K had no way of attacking the top lane because EDG created the impressive strategy. It's my favorite strategy in the entire tournament is they just realized, like, look, we cannot convince Clearlove to gank top. So let's just pick a mid laner that roams to the top lane. Just do it. Just get a roaming mid laner and he'll go top, and that way Mouse gets some help and everything's okay. And that's what they did. And it worked. And I think that version of the team is the version that we should see going forward. Do you like Scout for all the reasons I just named, or do you think that Pawn is the guy they're going to ultimately go with?
I think they need to go with Scout. I think Pawn is just a little too predictable in his play style. His roaming is not very strong. He is very much I want to sit in lane and be lane dominant and deal with my laner 1v1, maybe 2v2. I think you need to go with Scout because you do have such a deficiency with Clearlove that he does not want to go top lane at all. The joke on Twitter was, I think it was the AHQ game, where he started ganking for Mouse in the bot lane. It was like, oh, well, that's why he's ganking for Mouse. It's because Mouse went to the bot lane. So, hey, if that's what they need to do, fine, whatever. Yeah, I think it is definitely a deficiency with Clearlove that he doesn't gank top. It seems really, really bizarre, especially considering where the meta is right now. But this has always been his MO. Clearlove is going to play his style no matter what's good in the meta or anything. Like, fine, whatever. And teams can abuse that by going after the top laner more. But then EDG just needs to play safer. You can't play Aurelia if, you're never, ever going to go top and protect him. So I'm not worried. It's a deficiency, but EDG has shown throughout the course of the Chinese regular season, the Chinese playoffs, and now here at Worlds that it's something they can play around. And the one loss that they have is kind of fluky. It was against INTZ, and they just did not respect them. And INTZ showed this is how you beat EDG, and AHQ and H2K are just like, yeah, but that's not how we play, so
First of all, I think the lovely folks over at EDG would love for you to put their logo up on the stream, because I think you've still got Cloud9 on there.
Oh, that's right. I haven't shifted.
As pretty as Cloud9's logo is, I do think that Edward Gaming deserves some. They have a nice kind of black and silver. Yeah, they've got like the Raiders vibe to them. As far as the jerseys go, I can dig it. But looking deeper at this, I do think that at the end of the day, Scout had a lot more synergy with the team than it looked like Pond did. I think that Pond is individually an incredibly talented player. I don't think anyone can deny that. I think that his ability to lane is incredibly effective. Mm-hmm. And had they, you look at the AHQ game, I think that was a closer game. I said that in our Twitch chat here, but I'll say it for the lovely listeners at home as well. I think that was a closer game than maybe, you're letting on here, but it was closer because he didn't lane against Westor, he laned against Chawi, who can actually, lane. But at the end of the day, Pond can only punish a mid laner so much in lane. And what we're finding more and more is that, Mouse can be a potential weak link for this team. And that's the concern that you have if you're looking at it from EDG's perspective. He had an Aurelia game that looked, quite bad in that first game against INTZ. And then he had an Aurelia game against H2K that looked decent. He had plays that looked good. He had plays where you realize that he didn't really understand the limits of the champion. And they keep pushing it despite the fact that no one else is playing it. And I know, EDG, I am aware that you had a really good performance on it against Royal Never Give Up in the LPL finals. It looked really nice. I enjoyed it then. I don't need any more of it now. I'm ready to move on from that particular meta choice. I think there's too many other good top laners here. So for me, I think there are flaws with EDG. I think those flaws get shored up when they put Scout in and they let Scout roam top. They let Clearlove do what Clearlove does best, which is letting Deft and Mako be the hard carries on this team. I mean, let's face it. Good. Deft is the best AD carry in the world.
Good.
That kill onto Vander. I mean, people pointed out, like, Vander never should have face-checked that brush. But using the heal to get slightly past the enemy guy, to get right in range, to perfectly hit the grenade, like that is something that 0.01% of people in this League of Legends community could even think about doing, let alone execute perfectly.
And then they give up the double kill to Jankos right after.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying that it went 100% of the way, but first blood does matter, and Deft and Mako never looked back from that. And Forgiven and Vander never felt comfortable in lane after that. They had Yanko gank, and that was nice, but from that point forward, it was an entirely different game. The tone of that game had changed. And Clearlove has the ability to do that in a way that few people can, or I shouldn't say Clearlove. Deft has the ability to do that in a way that few people can. Clearlove has the ability to enable that in a way that few people can at this tournament. So that's why I like EDG. You know who else I like in this group, Walter? AHQ. And you have to say nice things about them because they're 2-1 right now.
I don't have to say anything nice about AHQ.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Give me all the reasons why you should not feel good about a 2-1 start in this group.
I mean, it's just because the other two teams in this group are not great. That's what it comes down to. H2K is massively underperforming, and INTZ is a wildcard team that once they played one game, everyone's like, oh, okay, this is how you play, and then INTZ has refused to play that way ever since. I don't know. It's really kind of strange. Maybe Yang can only play Gnar, kind of like Impact. I don't know. I haven't seen anything out of AHQ that's super impressive. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, you're asking me to say something nice about them. They've been the best out of the other three teams. There has not been a moment. How about the fact
that Ziv is a top 3 top laner at this tournament? But it's not even close.
There was the one moment where Ziv counters the 2v1, and he gets the 2 kills out of it. And that was great. That was a great play. That was
incredible.
But that's been the only moment where I'm like, oh, wow, AHQ is really good. There's never been a moment where I've been like, wow, this team is really, really good and really deserves my respect. They've been consistent. They've been good enough to go 2-1 because the other two teams below them are garbage. I'm sorry, but they haven't done anything to super, super impress. Westor hasn't been impressive. He's been okay. He's been deficient in laning. Yeah, he's been Westor, and I've seen Westor play 3 times now. Like, Chawi was okay, And Ellen
keeps getting out of the group stage for a reason, though. You can't always say that it's luck that AHQ gets put into
it's
the
not
groups.
luck, it's consistency. Fine, they're being super consistent. And I guess I should be impressed with that they get out of group stage again by being super consistent, but that doesn't change any opinion I have of them. It's H2 to me, it's H2K super underperforming. This is what I expected out of AHQ.
First of all, you say they only had one moment, so we're just going to forget the moment where On has 0.25 seconds to flash out of the Baron pit and then kills Forgiven, and in turn gets excited and wins
luck.
the game.
That's luck.
Oh, come on.
That's luck.
We both know that if Forgiven had made the play and the roles were reversed, you would be talking about how he was God-given, and you know it. And you know it. That was an amazing play by a guy that spent all of last Worlds.
It's incredibly lucky. It's a 10th of a second reaction.
And guess what? He did it all the time
lucky.
last year at the World Championship on Jinx. He was the only person who's been able to make Jinx work at this tournament because the guy is a master on it. Talk about pocket picks. Yeah, and it was really good. There were a couple other teams that tried to bring it out later, and it really didn't work. You have to be very precise on Jinx because of the lack of mobility in her kit, and he nailed it. And he beat Forgiven in lane, and he beat Forgiven in team fights. And if you're going to give Forgiven praise for being this mechanical whatever, you have to give On the same amount of praise for the way that he was playing as a mechanical player. He and Ziv have been mechanical gods so far. And you can say that, maybe they're not playing the greatest teams, as far as the group stage goes. They can only play the guys in front of them.
And they're beating them. That's great. That's fine.
But they're more than beating them. They are crushing these teams that are underneath them. That H2K game, they outclassed H2K when the team fight phase rolled around. And in the laning phase, even with Westor being down in CS, they were still taking more towers, they were still roaming better, and they were still ahead in gold. And in INTZ, that was not a close game. If we're going to give credit for Albus not...
Yeah, they're second in the group. They've won 2 games. I don't know what more you want me to say. I'm not going to praise them for being some amazing team because they're going to get crushed in the first round of the quarterfinals. I don't know what you want me to say. They've not done anything that I'm like, holy crap, AHQ might make it to the semifinals. They've not done anything that makes me say that.
Can someone in the Twitch chat please go find some tweets of Walter talking about some amazing Ziv and On plays? Because I know there are a few of them that he would like to hide right now. I need your help because I can't go do it because I have to finish this podcast. But I don't know, man. I think
the 1v2 was incredible by Ziv. You were absolutely right. And I think that the flash out of the Baron pit is incredibly fluky. And it is amazing reaction. It is amazing reaction time, but it is also incredibly fluky because a 10th of a second in the other direction, that auto attack goes off and kills them. It's incredibly fluky, and you would say the exact same thing if Forgiven had nailed it.
That's the difference. I've been saying nice things about Forgiven and lane this whole tournament. I don't have the same problem. Look, we're gonna have to move on.
I don't know what you want me to say.
What I would love to hear is that they have one of the 20 best players in this tournament easily in Ziv, because he is. And regardless of who you think he's playing against, he has gone up against top laners that we respected heading in. He crushed Yang. He crushed Odoamne, who was, among the top, he was 3rd team All-Pro in Europe, and he crushed Mouse. And, say what you will about Mouse, he's had some issues, but he's not bad. On and Albus, they hung in there. They did, against Deft and Mako. Deft and Mako did not crush them in lane when Deft and Mako have crushed almost everybody in lane, going back to an undefeated LPL season. I think that you're punishing their opponent, the fact that they have the strength of schedule that they do, and not giving them any credit for an EDG game that could have gone either way if a couple plays, go in the opposite direction.
See, I don't view that game like that at all. It could not have gone either way. There was not enough damage on AHQ's roster to go either way.
I think Mountain's a problem. I think Mountain is a person that you look at, and if I'm going to criticize SKT, they don't have a carry jungler. AHQ doesn't have a carry jungler. Mountain is not a carry jungler. I'm amazed that his Nidalee worked as well as it did against INTZ because I didn't think he could play it. I don't think any time I'm pretty sure Obscurica tweeted out, when did this happen? How did we not know? The last time we saw it was so terrible. How did we get here? But I think that if you put them in any of the other groups, I think they're still a 2-1 caliber team. I do. I think if you put them in Group B, they're 2-1. I think if you put them in Group D, That's maybe the only place where I think they're 1-2, and it's only because I think Group D is as strong as it is. I think they're 2-1 in Group A. I think that regardless, I think that team has intrinsic strengths that you are dismissing because the quality of opponent hasn't necessarily been there. But we're gonna have to agree to disagree.
I'm gonna mark this conversation down because when they get 3-0'd in the quarterfinals of the knockout stages, I'm gonna feel vindicated because they have not done anything for me to think that they are a threat to the top 5 teams in this tournament.
Well, sure, but that doesn't mean that they're not a team that's going to get out of this group. Top 8 is still a nice thing to be in the World Championship. I have nice things to say about the top 8 team.
They make top 8.
I have nice things to say about the team we're going to talk about next, which is H2K. Like this is the difference between you and me. For you, it is either they can win Worlds or they're crap. These are the best 16 teams in the league, in the world. That's the whole idea of this tournament.
Yeah.
I think that is unnaturally critical of this AHQ team, because they're still a top 8 team, undoubtedly to me, and that's where you and I.
We'll see. We need to move on because I don't have anything else to say about them. They have not done anything to impress me. That is all I can say. They've had a couple plays where I'm like, wow, that's really good, but other than that, I'm still in the same exact spot with them that I was.
Well, that's fine. I say through gritted teeth. Let's move on. H2K. See, you say that the rest of this group is just that bad. What makes you think that H2K is that bad? What's the difference between the God-given hopes that you had when you picked H2K to get out of this group, and now suddenly they're not good enough for
We were saying Flash Worlds doesn't know how to end a game. This team doesn't know what to do after they take the outer towers. They are literally lost, and this has been a problem that H2K has had forever, and Forgiven teams have had forever. They don't know what to do after they take towers. They don't know how to bait Barons. They don't know how to bait Dragons. They don't know how to break inhibitor lines unless the enemy team decides, okay, well, I guess we'll come out of our base and fight you. Even though we don't need to, we'll come out and we'll fight you. This team does not know what to do after 25 minutes when they take an outer towers. And the teams that are in this group are better late game teams than they are, with the exception of INTZ, which is why that's the first team that's the one team that's beaten them. As much as I don't want to give AHQ credit, Westor, while he's terrible in laning phase, he switch turns at 25 minutes where all of a sudden it doesn't matter. He's caught up on farm. He's caught up on gold because he's getting kills from all of his roaming. They're not giving an inch once it hits that certain line. They're telling H2K, okay, come take our tower, and H2K is going, I don't know what to do. How do we get under? How do we get the tower? Donald Trump up here imitating people. I don't know what to do. So yeah, I'm out. AHQ is getting out of this group. It's gonna be EDG and it's gonna be AHQ. I'm done. I'm done with Europe. Europe is awful this year. I'm done. I'm out.
Europe looks bad. It is funny to me that H2K is the best looking team of this group. I was low on EU
out
going
of the European teams. Whew. I was like, wait, you just talked up AHQ and you're saying H2K is the best team in the group? What?
out of the European teams, they are somehow the best. That's where we are in the state of Europe. And look, I want to give some credit where credit is due. Ryu has tried to carry some games. His Vladimir, he tried so hard to make some plays. It's so sad that people are just calling him that Korean mid laner that plays in Europe. That to me just breaks my heart, given what his career has been and that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer whenever the Hall of Fame is inevitably built. To me, what we're learning is exactly what I was afraid of when we previewed this team, which is that I don't think that they know how to handle the pressure of these big game situations very well. I don't think Jankos' decision-making has been great. I don't think Forgiven has made substantial steps forward. To me, he is the third best AD carry in this group, and that's something that we're not used to saying about Forgiven. Vander has made some really crucial mistakes, which have not helped Forgiven's case. It's a tough place for them to be in, because all of these pieces are pieces that when they did well, they interconnected together. Jankos gets the gank off, which gets Odoamne resources, and Odoamne resources means he can teleport down to the bot lane, which allows Forgiven to grab some kills. And then Forgiven's kills means that they get put pressure and they get the first tower and then they snowball. It's this puzzle that has fit together whenever H2K does well. And this is something that we saw in the European semifinals and throughout H2K's performance, even in the regular season, when those puzzle pieces aren't fitting the way they should, they collapse. They don't have a backup strategy. They don't have, like it's like if a computer crashes and didn't have the option to just, restart or reboot. Like they don't have that. They just does not compute themselves until the game inevitably ends against them. And that's a huge problem. I mean, and that's something where, we got to look at Prawley, and I hate to say it, man, because this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but Prawley is now at his second world championship. And this is the second year in a row where H2K looks like a mess of a team. And, last year we said it was because they had a really difficult group. They had EDG and SKT. This year, they have INTZ, AHQ. It's a complete mess, of a group in your eyes. That's what you seem to think. And if that's true, then that really falls on Prawley that they're not able to take advantage of that. If you're convinced that AHQ is not a top 8 team in the world, then the fact that you don't think H2K can even come close, you really got to reevaluate how you build this roster going forward, because they imported so much talent. They got the guys from Roccat that were supposed to be the talent powerhouses. They got the Greek mastermind of the bot lane, and they still aren't winning games on the big stage. And at some point, that's an infrastructure problem. That's an organizational problem. And we got to, I don't know. I have big questions about it. I have fewer questions about INTZ. I think that we unfortunately, we spent so much time talking about me loving AHQ and you hating them that we have to wrap up INTZ quickly, which I know Brazilian fans will not be happy about, but they haven't been happy since day one of the group stage anyway. So I guess that's just how things are going to proceed. Do they have another way to win, Walter? Is there a chance that they come out with a second way to do things?
We'll see. I mean, their first way was very obviously play Gnar and play through Yang in the top lane, and they have not done that since then because Gnar's been banned out, and Revolta just has a wall has been built between the jungle and the top lane. He doesn't want to go top lane, and the one time he did, they got a 1v2 turned around on them. So yeah, I'm not sure what their path to victory is anymore unless they find something interesting. Maybe hoping that enemy junglers are cursed by Broken Shard and they die to their own buffs. I'm not sure, but as fun a story as the day one was, I don't think they're a threat to get out. Maybe There's a chance they take a game off of H2K and really just solidify that H2K isn't a good team and isn't going to get out of this. It doesn't stand a chance of getting out of this group. But yeah, I mean, it was a nice story that they beat EDG. I just think they unfortunately they gave up their secrets. Now everybody knows what they're good at. So we'll see.
I mean, was it a secret given that was the way they got to this tournament in the first place? Like, Yang's Gnar should not be a secret. That was literally Game 5 against Leon Gaming. That's how they got here. Yang single-handedly, I mean, it was on Shen at the time, but he single-handedly got them to this spot. He has been the guy that makes the difference. And that's not to say that Revolta isn't great. Revolta is a great jungler. Personally, I think that both Yang and Revolta are import-worthy. I think as individual players, you put them in a North American infrastructure or even some of the best European infrastructure, I think those guys can become stars. I think they're individually incredibly talented. That said, they're matched with 3 guys in Talkers, Macau, and Jockster that just kind of pull them back. It's tough. I like the personalities. I like Talkers. I love the interview they did with him after game 1. I love the team and the energy that they put out there. Emily Rand has spent so much time letting us know this team, and it's been wonderful to read. I genuinely, they're a team you want to see successful, and Brazilian fans are so passionate. They're a region that you want to see successful. However, it's just not going to happen when your AD carry has the positioning skills of a guy like me. Like, that's just not, he's been picked off so many times. It's been a mess. Jockster is just not roaming the way that he was, in some of these wildcard tournaments. The 3-man roams just aren't nearly as effective when they're not getting Yang on champions that can freely roam the way they want. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's really tough unless Talkers can play Aurelion Sol. That's the only way I see it. Is you do the 3-man roam with an Aurelion Sol, put Revolta on Lee Sin or Nidalee or whatever hard carry, an Elise, whatever hard carry jungler you need, and get Jockster, and you just 3-man roam everywhere all the time.
You're really giving Talkers a lot of credit that he knows how to play Aurelion Sol.
I'm not saying he does. I'm saying that is the only path I can come up with. And maybe they surprise us at this Worlds. Really, I mean, we'll say this, right? Like, you talk about, like, I'm not sure about the Flash Wolves or AHQ or even, me having some doubts about Cloud9 or, some of these other teams. But, like, Albus Nox went 2-1. If at any time we were going to have a tournament where we said, who knows? Like, who knows if Talkers can pull out an Aurelion Sol? I certainly don't. I didn't think that INTZ was going to win a game in this group, given that I thought that H2K was at least going to be good enough. But, here we are. And if they can pull off a win against EDG, they can pull off another win in this group. And they can get to the 2-4 that's become, that would match the Brazilian mark from last year that they set for themselves as a guideline. And we'll see if they get there. I personally,
I don't have high hopes. I don't
have high hopes either, but H2K looks vulnerable enough. It's in play. And if you look at the order in which those games are going to be played, and they are playing on Wednesday, or sorry, it's not Wednesday. That would be really soon. They're playing on Friday. They play EDG first. They play AHQ, and they play H2K last. And that could be an H2K is already eliminated and we don't care anymore. And Forgiven spent the last 3 hours yelling at his teammates because they blew a game that they could have won against AHQ or EDG, and the team's just done. And they have these personalities that are all known for being very fiery personalities. And it's not just Forgiven, for the record. Jankos has that reputation as well. And the team just implodes in on itself, and INTZ gets a second win. That is also in play. So we'll find out. It's going to be interesting to watch. That's Group C. I think it's time to move on to Group D. I think this is the group that, obviously you've got to be most excited to talk about, because if you guys think that I'm drinking Kool-Aid on the LMS, we have our resident TSM fan, a guy who has been with the team since #Baylife really meant something back in the day. A guy that deeply understands the history of Rain Man and his impact on the League of Legends stage. Walter, take the stage. How do you think that TSM is doing so far, and where do you see him going for the next week?
So I feel like part of it really depends on how much of the Kool-Aid you're drinking on the Bjergsen is sick and how much that's really impacting it. From the interview that he had on stage, he does not sound very good, and there's been discussions that a lot of players are actually sick at this event. And welcome to San Francisco, where you wake up and it's 80 degrees out, but there's such a thick layer of fog it really feels like it's 40. It's wonderful. It's absolutely great. It's a great, great city. So a lot of people are sick. I think it does have an impact on TSM because they are so reliant on Bjergsen as a shot caller. So having him not feel great obviously is hindering them. It's putting some undue pressure then on Doublelift to be the primary shot caller. I don't want to see him on Jhin anymore. I think his Jin's pretty mediocre. It's not great. Let's get him on something else, even though I understand that this is your primary strategy of what you want to do. And it gives him a lot of ability to kind of dictate the game from sitting kind of farther back. But yeah, I think that they're doing pretty well. I think that the combination of Svenskeren and Bjergsen is incredibly strong in the early game. It's really getting them out ahead of some of these other teams. They have some issues with Splyce where Doublelift does this thing where I'm going to go off and solo farm lanes and I'm going to die to Balzar because I don't have a QSS and don't have words and I expect my team to be with me at all times. And yeah, that's inexcusable. But then the game, I feel like this closeness of the Splyce series and the game that they lost against Royal was Bjergsen being it was Doublelift being, I'm Doublelift. I don't need to respect anyone. I'm the best. Everyone else is trash. He got the fan from the Chinese media that said like everyone else is trash. That was kind of cute. I think he's eating a slice of humble pie. I think he realizes that he cannot treat everyone with such disrespect, because if they get the 2 seed, they're guaranteed EDG, SKT, or Rocks. It's pretty much a guarantee. And granted, you have to beat one of those. You probably have to beat 2 of those teams to win the World Championship. But let's wait another round. Let's get to the semifinals. I want to watch you guys play live in New York City. Like, that would be fantastic. Please do that for my sake.
That's true. Walter and I will be there live at the Madison Square Garden for the semifinals, which will actually be the first time we meet in person, which will be funny enough. We'll have to do something live together since we'll be in the same room. I don't know what we're gonna do.
We'll put something on Twitter or something. But I think they're gonna yell at Double Lift and be like, dude, you can't 1v5. Like, respect everyone. They can beat you. Any loss right now can really screw us over. And probably get him off the Jhin. I think that's the 2 things TSM are going to do. And while I don't think they're going to necessarily 3-0, I think they're going to make it out as the number 1 seed. I think they are the strongest of the 4 teams in this group. Mainly because of Svenskeren, because Svenskeren has been holy crap. He is arguably been a top, the top jungler at Worlds. Just high impact.
Okay, I was gonna say this is what Twitch chat is saying now too.
And I want to agree with them. I think it might be right.
I get nervous when people say that, man, because first of all, we're ignoring the fact that that Ambition's had some great games. We're ignoring the fact that Karza has had some great games. We're ignoring the fact that Clearlove, for all of his deficiencies, has had some incredible plays. Peanut has been, maybe less than we would expect. I have a feeling that some people are going to jump up the ladder. It's hard for me to believe that Svenskeren is the best jungler at this tournament, just because he's a guy that has clear strengths and weaknesses. This meta is very nice for him, for the record, and I love watching him play. I just think there's going to be a little bit of a come down to earth for him. But in the same way, I expect to come back to where I expect to be from Bjergsen as well. I think Bjergsen's going to get better. I think that, regardless of whether you believe in the Cygnus or not, I think the Orianna loss to RNG, they left something on the table there. That was a pick and ban. They did not trust Bjergsen to hard carry that game. And we've seen Orianna really not do well at this Worlds. And even if Svenskeren takes the teeniest of a step back, I think Bjergsen, when he's playing champs like Syndra, when he's playing things like Cassiopeia, when he's playing champions where he can make the difference, guy's terrifying. There's a reason that even Faker said, yeah, Bjergsen's the NA Faker. And it's not just because he loves getting Western fans to shower even more praise onto him. Like, it's genuinely, he's an amazing talent. And the fact that he does all of this while also being the primary shot caller, while also being able to organize all these things, and make sure that, Hanser's potential solo lane weaknesses, if it's been a big problem, I certainly haven't noticed it. It didn't come up against Samsung. It certainly didn't come up against Splyce, which we'll get to later. But, you could argue maybe Looper took advantage of him a little bit. But you're right. I mean, the question, and it's an eternal question, is, will Double Lift learn to respect his opponents? And history says, no, he will not. Double Lift, there was a great tweet, and I forget who made it. I apologize for not crediting you properly. But there was a tweet where someone said of Double Lift, when you think you're trash but still think you're better than everyone else, and it's a trash bag that's like golden sheared while everyone else is just a regular black trash bag. Like, I genuinely think that's Double Lift's mindset. Like, I know I make mistakes.
Who cares?
But everyone else will make even more, so it's fine. It doesn't matter. And that's something that's just been put into his DNA at this point. He has played League for so long. I think the idea that you're going to work that out of who Double Lift is as a player is unlikely.
Yeah.
And I will not be surprised if Samsung and if Royal Never Give Up try to attack that this week. But if they can't, TSM wins the group the way I predicted they did. And that one loss to RNG doesn't shake me from it. Partly because I didn't think that the pick and ban was the best that Yarg is, or not Yarg, Parth has put out there, excuse me. And second, because I think that at the end of the day, RNG played such a weirdly restrained game. I don't think anyone would have expected that playstyle from Royal Never Give Up, given what we'd seen previously. And that's the next thing we have to talk about is, of all the teams that are going to be seeking revenge here, that are going to be trying to, really put their stamp on Worlds and show that their region deserves to have, all the respect and accolades that they got heading into it. Right now, it's Royal Never Give Up. I mean, they've been playing, with the exception of that Samsung loss, they've been playing at an incredibly high level and with a much more macro play than we're used to for them. What are you seeing from Royal Never Give Up as far as what they've done so far and the kind of things that you expect them to carry on to next week?
So, the thing about Royal was that the first two games they've been incredibly strong on the bottom side, and Ambition and Samson really said, okay, we're going to go after you on the bot, and Mata and Uzi kind of played a little iffy. They gave up the double kill, and once that happened, they just couldn't play their normal aggressive in-your-face sort of style. They really had to tone back on it. So I don't see them giving up a double kill first blood again against Samsung. I think they stand a very good chance at winning that game, and I think most of the teams in this group are going to alternate their losses. Like, I could see Samsung coming back and beating TSM. I can see Royal beating Samsung. I can see TSM beating Royal. It just kind of comes down to what do I think is more likely, and Samsung seems like the team that has the biggest weaknesses, where RNG, it just felt like they just fell behind and they don't know how to play from behind, which is kind of definitive of their summer season. They had a really hard time playing from behind when they fell apart. MLXG tends to have some troubles, when his lanes aren't winning, they aren't crushing, they aren't super aggressive.
Except against TSM, which is a game where they were losing lane. They were losing for like 30 to 35 minutes of that game. And to me, this is the thing that makes RNG terrifying. First of all, Mata exists. And, people were sleeping on Mata. We're like, he's a great support. We always know he's a great support. But, this is even something I said when I was previewing them for our during our preview series. I was like, well, Uzi's really talented and Mata's really talented, but they're kind of on different wavelengths. They don't necessarily agree on how the game should be played out. And they really needed to sit down and figure it out. And I think they had the conversation because they figured it out in that TSM game. They had no problem seeding, certain jungle objectives, certain towers, certain dragons, and just saying, we know that when we get to X point in the game, we can win every team fight because Mata is going to land every single Alistar combo and just single-handedly tear the game apart, or the Nami bubble, or whatever it was. Like, they have trusted in him throughout this tournament, and it's funny. The one loss they have is the Samsung Galaxy, who we'll get to in a second, and it was the support change, I think, that made the biggest difference in that regard. But this is a Royal Never Give Up team that is genuinely intelligent. This is not a see person, kill person. And I know, calling them genuinely intelligent, it sounds like a backhanded compliment because it implies that they weren't intelligent before. But you know what? I don't take it back. This is not a team that played smart. That 3-0 loss to EDG in the LPL finals was embarrassing, and it should be taken as such. But they have figured it out. Uzi looks great. Mata looks like he's in that best support in the world role again. Like that very easily could be a thing. And, MLXG and Looper, the synergy's there. I'm not so sold on Xiaohu. And I think that's the problem they have against TSM the second time around, is if Bjergsen's put on a carry and they just tell Svenskeren, like, look, your job is to get Bjergsen to a point where he is just bullying Xiaohu all game long. Yep. I don't know what RNG's answer to that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree. I think that it's something that TSM it can be very successful when Bjergsen goes on to more of a supportive role. We've seen it with the Lulus in the past. I don't like it. He's your superstar. Put him on a superstar champion. Don't rely on him having to hit Orianna ult. Like, let him go carry. We've seen that his Cassiopeia is extremely strong. We've seen that his Syndra is extremely strong. His Varus has been good in the past. His Jace is probably pretty good. Like, let's let him carry. I understand that he was sick and you wanted to take some of the pressure off of him. He's got to be your primary carry, because if you put all your gold into the double lift basket and he does this stupid, I'm going to go off by myself and push side lanes bull again, it's going to cost you some games. So let's go all in on the Bjergsen basket, which is the guy that you brought in first and the guy that you built this entire organization team around, and he's the guy that signs off on, well, yeah, okay, we can go get double lift. I guarantee you Bjergsen had to be like, yeah, I'm down with that. So
yeah, Bjergsen has the keys to the kingdom, so to say. But we're saying all this stuff about TSM, and we're saying all these things about Royal Never Give Up, and we have the Twitch chat winning some games again, rightfully pointing out that one of RNG's weaknesses is that exactly the type of team they're going to be. They don't play around Jiahu, mostly because I don't think they can. They don't really play around Looper, even when he's on the kind of top laners that can have an impact. They haven't needed to yet. But the other team in this group that's at 2-1 is Samsung Galaxy. And this is one of the things you talked about in the preview, how much smarter this team looked with Core JJ at the helm. And for whatever reason, in the first 2 games, they played Wraith. And I understand that Wraith has technical skill. There are going to be some LCK people who are like, you don't understand. Wraith had some great games in all these places. And that's totally fine. I accept that and I understand it. However, Core JJ just seems to call this team so much better. And they seem to be making such smarter rotations and really punishing these other areas of the map. And you say they don't need it? They needed it against Samsung in the last game of that, that series of Group D, and they didn't have it. And Samsung was just able to outsmart them and out-rotate them because they knew what RNG needed to do to win and were able to prevent that. Do you think that Samsung is going to stick to that Core JJ plan and let his shot calling dictate the day for them?
Oh yeah, they're going to stick to Core JJ. I think absolutely they've realized that the laning proficiency that Wraith gives them against these kind of players, it's just not enough. It's not enough for this team, and they've shown that they play much, much better when Core JJ is at the helm. Core JJ is probably the one that said, "Hey Skarner, come bot and we can kill these guys. We can force some flashes. Like we forced summoner spells earlier. Like come on down and let's take care of this." So, we'll see, because the deficiencies that he does have in laning can be exploited by Royal if they don't get that kind of early lead off of the double kill.
Yes.
But that being said, I feel like they have deficiencies. Crown, while he is a very good kind of he's a very good mid laner on certain champions, on certain control champions. He can be exploited, especially from very repetitive ganks from Svenskeren, especially was very, very effective with it. I think that's where MLXG is going to have to put a little bit more pressure, is in the mid lane and not in the top lane, just to prevent the roaming, to get a lot of wards around him and just not let him wander around the map with ambition. And then Samsung, Kuve reminds me of Dyrus, where you just leave him on his own and you just hope he doesn't just completely and totally continue to die, because Looper was able to kind of fight him 1v1 and get a lead, and I think Haunters can do that and get a lead, and Wonder can even do that and get a lead, although we'll talk about Splyce in a moment.
I was going to say, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here.
So Samsung, I'm just not sold on. I think they have some bigger weaknesses than the other teams, even though RNG only has that one-dimensional playstyle through the bottom lane. I think second time around against Samsung, they're not going to let ambition just come down and dictate that. I think MLXG will change his jungle pathing a bit to make sure that Uzi and Mata are protected and can, make it to like level 5 or 6 without jungle intervention.
Yeah, I mean, and that's very much in play. I think that certainly they're going to, we have great coaches on both sides of this. I mean, these are two organizations that have a very prestigious history in League of Legends. Season 4 World Championship was Samsung White and Royal Never Give Up, right? Like these are it was Starhorn Royal Club at the time.
Yeah.
But it was still these two organizations just before the Royal Never Give Up name change.
Yeah.
But they know how to adjust. They have coaches that are intelligent, that understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and that are going to be able to battle back. And honestly, I don't think that, if any of these teams underestimate the other's ability to adjust to what happened the first time around, that's what's going to get these teams in trouble. And to me, this is one of those things where there might be infinite tiebreakers in Group D if we're in an ideal world. Like, all of these teams can take games off of each other that we've talked about. They all have either the skill or the understanding of the macro game, or whatever that combination of the two that we define TSM as, where they're kind of they don't quite have someone in a Mata who or an Uzi that is just so above and beyond that they alone can win a game, but they have more team play. All three of them are really good, and that's what makes Group D so much fun. It's what makes it so when we look at some of the teams that you and I have disagreed upon, I think we can both agree that Group D is filled with talent until we get to Splyce. And I picked Splyce to go 0-6. I still pick Splyce to go 0-6. I almost don't want to talk about this team because there's nothing that I can say that's going to be fun. And as much, as I like Tomato Canyon for his history as the former head coach of Roccat, and I like the fact that they took a relegation team to second place in the spring split. I mean, a summer split, I should say, after being in relegations in the spring. To me, it's a matter of, if anything is going to break this group and break our analysis completely wide open, it's going to be if Splyce grabs a game.
Yeah.
So, Walter, can Splyce grab a game? And if so, what does that look like?
I think it would be off of Samsung. And that's why I think that Samsung's going to be the odd man out. Because Wonder versus Cuvée is definitely... Wonder has not been playing well. He has been pretty poor this tournament. I will 100% agree, but I think that is Splyce's road to victory. Much like
so you're saying that Kled's charge in that game 1 was not ideal? Is that what you're saying?
I would not play Kled again. No, I wouldn't play Kled. But I think on like Kennen or Gnar, it could be a very, very strong pick, and I think Trashy needs to go there. I think he needs to realize that Senkux versus Crown would be a pretty even matchup, and just tell Kabi and Mickey, play straight, play smart, don't do anything too stupid, make sure you're really well worded, give up a couple CS if you're not sure where ambition is, and he needs to go top it. Him and Wonder, they need to just basically make Cuvé's day a living hell. They need to make him miserable. They need to kill him over and over and over again and get Wonder to the point where, okay, Wonder is going to do what he did all of the European year, which is, I'm going to split push. I'm going to split push. And your top laner isn't strong enough to beat me. So you're going to have to send someone up here to stop me as well as your top laner. And now it's a 4v3 across the rest of the map, and my 4 players are smarter than your 3 players and are going to take objectives, because that's what they did all throughout Europe. And anytime they had trouble, it was because Wonder didn't go off. Wonder got held down. And that's the problem that they were facing.
Well, and the other problem they're facing, you're assuming that their 4 are smarter than the other guy's 3. And I'm not sure that's true when you're playing some of the smartest teams in this tournament right now. I would never have said that about Royal Never Give Up going in, but after that TSM game, we have to include them in the list of really intelligent teams. And Splyce has no experience. None of these guys have been on the world stage before. These guys almost lost a best of 5 to the Unicorns of Love. The Unicorns of Love were a game away from being here instead. Like, that is not... You're not allowed to call yourself a macro intelligent team when that happens. You're just not. You have to turn in your macro play card as soon as that happens. And at the end of the day, like, I can see a world in which they try to get Wonder ahead, but the problem is that this is not Trashy's meta. Trashy does really well. He is a guy, I say that, there are some other junglers like Bengi that would definitely benefit from having more of, a Gragas or whatever, that supportive style jungler. Trashy.
Yeah. Yes.
Because guess what? This is the exact meta that got, Trashy basically sent back to Europe from North America after Enemy just went down the tubes. Like, this is exactly what that looked like. And we're seeing it now, except it's on a world stage. So it's like 20 times worse.
Yeah.
Like, And on the one hand, like, he's had enough time in his career. He should have learned how to play one of these champions, but he can't. And if he can't, how do you get Wonder ahead? Well, you can have Senkux roam, and he's been trying to roam in Cassiopeia, but that has been just such a mixed bag. For every roam where you're like, oh, he made a good play there. That's awesome. They got 2 kills to 1. That was a nice trade. Now they have some pressure in the bot lane. You then get and now he's being collapsed upon, and now 3 of Splyce's members just died because they all kind of came in one by one. or he just roams and gets killed because they don't have vision control because their vision has entirely dropped off. And again, I chalk that up to inexperience on the world stage. They're just not playing to the level that they were. I don't know, man. It's very hard for me to imagine Splyce doing these things, even though they, and the sad part is, like, the one thing you'd point to, like, well, they did take a game off of G2. Well, that's not saying much anymore. So I don't have a lot of faith in them. Hopefully, you guys really enjoyed the show here. For those of you who are listening at home, we will do more of these. You should go to twitch.tv/roughdraftspodcast. I would like to do these live every week going forward, just the pure preview ones. I think it's a lot of fun. I love seeing the Twitch reaction with you guys. I love being able to type in some of the memes. It's the only thing that kept me from trying to strangle Walter through the computer screen during the AHQ section. So I appreciate you guys. Obviously, there are going to be things you agree with and disagree with on both of our analysis. If there weren't, then we wouldn't be doing our job right. So you should definitely let us know on social media. The podcast itself is at Rough Drafts Pod. That's where we do all our live tweeting. Our individual Twitters, I'm at RedShirtKing. Walter, where can the nice people at home find you?
You guys can find me just absolutely crushing LMS fans' hopes and dreams just by calling them a terrible region and not giving them any respect at Ceades_LOL.
For the record, if anyone's going to crush the LMS's hopes and dreams, it's the LMS. Thank you very much. Flash Wolves are doing just fine crushing our hopes and dreams. They don't need your help. But you should also know, people who are watching the live stream, we do a ton of other content throughout the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there will be 4 podcasts that you'll probably wake up to, depending on what time zone you're in. That we will be breaking down the gambling lines for that day's action, as well as making our predictions for each individual game. We love doing our Guess the Lines pods. They're kind of smaller bits, kind of more in the 20 to 25 minute range is our goal for the week. So, they're a little bit more digestible. And if you like our content, you should definitely check that out, as well as all the other previews and podcasts we did. YouTube.com, if you search for Rough Drafts Pod, we're just a few subscribers away from having a definitive URL. So we really appreciate that. SoundCloud.com/esports Rough Drafts, if you want to subscribe on there. If you prefer the audio only version of these things, you can take it on the go. And of course, if you're using an iPhone or anything else, it is you can search for Rough Drafts Podcast on the iTunes section there, and you will find us. Of course, now we're going to cut off this recording for the lovely listeners at home and go on to a Q&A section with you lovely people in our chat here. We want to hear what you want to know. So if you have any questions for us, start typing them in now. Walter and I are going to process through, and we're going to answer the best questions you guys have until we get tired of answering questions. So
what I want to do...
Well, let's just say, for those of you who do not want to, the Q&A will be released separately for the podcast. So all you podcast people, goodbye, Internet.